Ladies and gentlemen, this man that you're looking at impersonated being a doctor and a wilderness expert. But what he really, truly was, and still is a child molester. So this came out on USA Today, October 22nd, 2020. Before she recognized him as the man she believed molested her son, Shauna Cleveland handed him a piece of chocolate. David Menna was pushing his elderly mother in a wheelchair through Tulsa, Oklahoma's Woodland Hill Mall. Cleveland was passing out samples from C's Candy. It was Christmas time. The crowds were buzzing. She bent down to greet the white-haired woman, then stood up and caught a glaze at the man who molested her son. Her heart sank. It was him. The man who said he was a doctor, who talked of training Navy SEALs, who bragged about knowing celebrities. By then, she knew he was none of those things, and it was a backstory he'd woven. She believed to groom her son. Inside, her brain screamed, pedophile, pedophile, but she couldn't speak. Few had believed her the last time. Why would it be different now? Instead, she ran to the store's back room and sat with her head in her hands, trying not to throw up. The first time Cleveland laid her eyes on David Menna was 10 years earlier, in August 2007. He'd taken her son Noah to a meeting of the Young Marines, a national youth organization he had just joined. A group of a dozen or so boys and girls ages 8 to 18 met every Tuesday wearing military-style uniforms. They were responsible for pressing and starching themselves. A soft-spoken man with wired frame glasses sat at the sign-in table, briefcase open with paperwork for the upcoming camping trip. He introduced himself to her as Dr. Menna. Menna had showed up unexpectedly a few weeks before at the annual 4th of July Veterans Appreciation Picnic in Chandler Park on the banks of Arkansas River. He made quite an impression on the Young Marines commanding officer Terry Funk. A wonderful event fell into our laps, Funk wrote on the youth organization website at the time. The lanky 50-year-old with thinning brown hair had volunteered to give the Young Marine members a lesson. I bet he did a lesson, huh? To Funk delight, Menna had each kid try it right there. Okay, so he had the children on cliffs in a park. It turns out he is certified in a number of specialties, such as mountain rescue, medical EMSA, type rescue. Funk added a few days later, he had his equipment in the car. Release forms handed out at the August meeting identified the Youth Marines as sponsors of the camping trip, along with scouts, because members of the local Boy Scout troop planned to attend. It was listed on the Young Marines site, and the Young Marines and Boy Scouts would pay Menna directly for their membership, who wanted to attend about $150 a piece. So these kids paid $150 a piece just to get molested. Damn. To Cleveland, the trip seemed like a blessing because she homeschooled Noah and his three siblings. So she always looked for opportunities to introduce them to new activities, like the Boy Scout. The Young Marines is a nonprofit organization aimed at promoting mental, moral, and physical development of youth. Its units are ran by volunteers, often veterans who are screened by the national headquarters. The Scouts, too, had a volunteer section process. All right, so they had a process and did all kinds of criminal background checks and references. Only after when things went wrong, Cleveland would learn that Menna was not an official vetted volunteer and the camping trip was unsanctioned. Wow. Only then she would see both the young Marines and the Boy Scouts turned away. So they didn't vet this guy at all. You know why? Because of who and what he is in America. They felt they didn't have to vet him. His word was good enough, and he turned out to be a child molester. Cleveland would spend most of the next decade fighting for accountability from Menna. As criminal and civil court cases dragged on, from the young Marines, which introduced Menna to her son and then claimed the man was never their responsibility, from the Boy Scouts, which also denied responsibility for Menna in court. Menna's stories show how easily an alleged predator can bounce from one youth organization to another, dazzling parents and boys. The Boy Scouts filed bankruptcy earlier this year because of mounting liability from thousands of similar allegations, including one against Menna. Okay, well, if you know there's all of these pedophilia accusations against these organizations, why are people still putting their children in this stuff? That's what I want to know. Why are you putting your children in this stuff and you know what kind of reputation they have? Makes no sense. Okay, let me move on. He eventually would be formally accused of molestation in both Georgia and Oklahoma, and both times he denied the accusation. Investigations crumbled, prosecutions flounder, a plea deal was struck. Records were erased and sealed. That left Menna with a clean background on paper. Wow. So y'all can do that, huh? So you can molest children and legally have the slate white clean. And this man, if you did a background check on him, he would come up squeaky clean. And he has a reputation and has been charged in the past with molesting children. Wow. You see how easy that is, y'all? He got a squeaky clean background on paper. And legally, this system is the one that allowed that to happen. Mm-mm-mm. His name never appeared on any sex offender registry, although he's a child molester. Mm-mm-mm. Every time he was accused, it was as if it was the first. Mm-mm-mm. If he volunteered to lead a camping trip for children today, his record would still look clean. Mm-mm-mm. Well, that's America for you. And it just goes to show you this system ain't worth dog do. It's not. It's not a good system. It's never been a good system. And it never will be at this point. So when people tell you, let the system work, well, this is an example of your system failing. A child molester in America can actually walk around with a squeaky clean record. And it was all done through the system that is supposed to be protecting children, and it failed. Mm-mm-mm. All right, so Menna passed himself off as a doctor, even though he never held a license. Graduating from Emory Dental School in 1987 was enough to earn him the title. He had later argued in court. By early 1990s, and then 30-something bachelor who lived with his parents had taken up extreme wilderness sports, rock climbing, and okay, so he turned the basement of his parents' suburban Atlanta home into a virtual REI store. It helped that Menna's lived a few hours from the caving Mecca, a geographic region at the intersection of northern Georgia, Alabama, and southern Tennessee, is home to more than 14,000 caves carved from limestone, bedrock, hundreds of millions of years ago by an ancient sea. Some of those pits resemble stuff of nightmares, said Dennis Curry, a retired National Park ranger who served as lieutenant of the country's oldest cave and rescue team. Pitch black, impossibly steep, with slick, pounding waterfalls. Mm-mm-mm. So this guy went out there, I guess, a couple of times, saw it, and he all of a sudden became a wilderness expert. Wow. Well, I mean, look, I have to admit, when you look at him, he just blends right in, right? And so I guess on face value, this child molester they felt could be trusted, and that's what they went with. How typical. I've seen stuff like this even on jobs. I have seen stuff like this on jobs. I worked at a company. This was probably back late 90s, early 2000s. I worked at a company, and we had this guy in the office, and I didn't give him a dime. I didn't trust this guy. I didn't care what he slick words came out of his mouth. I didn't trust. You know how you can just look at somebody, he's like, I can't trust that person. I didn't trust him. Well, every year in the early part of the year, they would start collecting money for the next Christmas party by the end of the year. And they would start that real early in the year. And that way they had all the money they need. And the way they did it is they would just go around the office and collect money from employees. Well, $50,000 was collected, y'all. $50,000. And they had this little short guy. And let me just say his name was Joe. And he was a little Italian guy. Guy had to be 5'2". I'm telling you, he had zero height on him at, just a little short little munchkin. Well, anyway, oh, Joe, this is them talking about, oh, Joe is a great guy. Joe's a great guy. Oh yeah, I trust Joe. Yeah, let Joe collect the money. He'll keep the money. Oh yeah, I trust Joe. He's all right. He's harmless. Nah, I trust Joe. You know that mess that you hear from these folks, right? Anybody that look like them can be trusted. They're good. That's a good person, right? Joe skipped out with that money, y'all. He cleared out that bank account and never returned back to that job. He bounced with all the money. And they had already booked this catering place that was going to host the Christmas party. So ultimately, what happened, the company foot the whole bill for the party. So they didn't bother trying to recollect money, but that's what they did. They foot the bill. And everybody that lost money, oh well, You just lost your money. Y'all, that's one of many stories. I'm not going to tell more. There are more stories I can tell you about these people doing these little shady things and then bouncing. It was notorious on jobs. That's where I saw it the most. But y'all, please tell me what you think. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.